Today, I wanted to talk about the importance of revisiting the places you've been and kind of the lessons and observations that I learned along the way. I'm leading a tour now to Iceland, a ring road tour, and I'm hitting a few key spots that I've hit in the past, the first time I was here. I'm really enjoying going back through some of the spots and thinking over maybe potential mistakes I've made, and also really excited about how the weather and the environment has kind of changed this time around. So the first thing that comes to mind as I kind of revisit these locations is follow the general rule that the answer is always yes. If you have that initial feeling of whether or not you should pull over, whether or not you should spend the energy, right, that it takes to commit to that hike or that walk or whatever the case may be, regardless of any weather, the answer is always yes. We learned that lesson really big on this trip. We went to some pretty extraordinary places in the Highlands, and I think if we hadn't adopted that mentality of, hey, let's just go and push through whatever the thing was, whatever the distraction was that held us up. If we were tired, if it was the weather, it doesn't matter. The answer is always yes. And I feel like that really paid off in this trip. The last time I came to Iceland, I don't feel like I had that mentality. I felt like I came up with a lot of convenient excuses not to pull off on the side of the road and not to send the drone up, not to spend that additional 15 or 30 minutes at location to wait for the sun to come up, for the light to change, for the weather system to change. All of that is really, really important, just in general, but more so when you're revisiting locations and you're expecting different results. Answer is always yes. How was it, Frank?
Amazing.
Oh yeah.
Beautiful sunrise.
Got a little wet.
Diamonds on the beach. I'm wet, but I'm all right.
That's right.
Walked away with some great shots.
Trying to catch a bird flying through. See a couple swans.
We hit Stocksnes at sunrise, and it was perfect. It was absolutely perfect. The clouds hadn't rolled in yet, and there were little wisps of clouds just kind of lining certain peaks, and you had nice pastel colors over here with the sun rising. This is one of those locations where, especially if you're shooting in the sunrise, I feel like you are really just overwhelmed with the amount of locations and spots and compositions that you can shoot. And it can be very, very distracting. And you're racing against the clock. You're racing against the sun. You have about 30 minutes, maybe 40 minutes, as the light changes really quickly and paints the peak to kind of really hone in what you want to do. And I think the second thing that kind of comes to mind during this trip for me is just less is more. I intentionally brought just a lighter kit. I have the 55, the 90, and 25. No zooms, just primes on the Hassie, and I didn't even touch the drone. I brought the drone, but I didn't even send it up, and it was almost refreshing making peace with the decision that I knew I wasn't going to be sending up the drone, just because I wanted to get everything with just kind of eye level perspective with the camera, and that kind of gave me a lot of flexibility. I feel like I had more time to compose my vertical panos and just kind of scout out the composition a lot more. When you're rushing and just overwhelmed with the amount of, I just need to get everything from every angle, that's where you really lose a lot of intentionality behind your shots. If you take the approach of, I need to get as much as possible, as quickly as possible, you run the risk of just losing a lot of intentionality behind your shots. If you give yourself a little bit of time back and arrive at a location knowing that you're gonna set yourself some limitations, that's gonna give you, I feel, just a lot more breathing room to get creative, to look for that specific leading line that you were looking for, to wait for the light, to scout out the reflective part of a composition like this. It took me like 10 minutes to 15 minutes to find. I was kind of bouncing all over, and I knew it was here. It's an iconic shot. But during that time, actually, this part of the lake, it wasn't calm. There was some wind passing over it, which was giving it a lot of ripples, and so the reflection wasn't coming through, and I wouldn't have seen it had I been flying my drone and trying to get as much as possible. And if you give yourself constraints and if you give yourself creative boundaries, I think that generally leads to just more intentionality behind the process and possibly a better product at the end of it. I've only been here once before, but this is one of those places where you just kind of dream of living in another life. But as we were driving yesterday, I couldn't help but think, you know, how the locals feel about this place. The people that live here, do they feel the same kind of inspiring awe that you know I feel? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. Last night we got another blast of aurora across the I guess western sky. It was 2 nights in a row. We were out up a mountain road, and we're kind of staying in a cluster of Airbnbs, and no one else was out. And it kind of begs the question whether or not the locals feel as I do in a place like this after living here for a number of years. But I do think there is something to be said about it's easier to draw inspiration from locations that you're not familiar with, that you don't know. And I think that's a good challenge, you know, to keep chasing inspiration in those places that you feel are mediocre, in the places that you feel are familiar, that you feel are just normal. I live in the Midwest of the United States, and there's nothing but kind of monochromatic colors and flat plains, and there's no mountains, there's no aurora. So I think being here again makes me challenged to really stay intentional about chasing inspiration in the place that I currently live. And that can be really, really tough. That can be tough. But especially when you see something as beautiful as Dedifoss yesterday. But I think it's a good challenge. And that's something that really stood out to me yesterday, was how to continue to draw inspiration from a place that you live, a place that you're familiar, that you might feel is boring. And I think that's a whole nother YouTube video in and of itself. But right now that's kind of morning thoughts with coffee out of a creamer cup. Now, if you've ever been interested in going on your own photo tour, I offer tours now that you can find through my website at brollandmedia.com, or you can find through my socials and look up the tour information from there. I'd love to have you come on the tour. If you're interested or have any questions about it, feel free and reach out to my email directly or fill out an online submission form, and I'm happy to communicate with you that way as well. This year is going to be amazing because we are going at the tail end of August, which is still kind of summer season in Iceland. We're going to have longer days, longer light, and that means more opportunity to get your photos. Now, we only have limited spots, so I hope you can come and attend. I think it'll be a lot of fun. You'll walk away with some great photos, some great memories, and great experiences. So if you're interested, check out the itinerary through my website. I detail it all out there, where the locations will be, what we're going to be doing with a day-by-day breakdown. Again, all that information is under my tour section of my website, brollandmedia.com.